Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Legal Paige podcast. It's Paige here, owner and lead attorney at the Legal Paige. The Legal Paige podcast was founded on the premise of providing you all kinds of good legal information and tips related to the business that you run. So get ready for all kinds of Legal Paige tips headed your way. You're listening to the Legal Paige podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. As a reminder, before we get into this episode, I am legally obligated to give my disclaimer. I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. All legal information I talk about in this episode is intended for the masses and a large variety of different businesses. Please seek out another attorney in your city and home state if you need specific legal advice related to your unique business. Okay, let's get back to it. So to get started, we are going to kick off this episode with everything related to website terms and conditions and privacy policies. Let's get to it. Okay, without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it and talk first about privacy policies. So privacy policies are becoming more and more well-known across the online world, and it's really, really important to have on your website because, drum roll, it is required by law. So you have to have a privacy policy on your website. If you are doing anything related to having an email sign-up form or using Google Analytics or Facebook Pixel ads, and I've been getting lots of questions about, do I really need to have a privacy policy up on my website? And my answer is always yes, because I would venture a bet that your website platform or host is acquiring some type of information from your users that land on your website. So even if you're not like having pop-ups or asking people to come to your email newsletter, or you're not, sending out ads on Facebook and you have pixels all over different pages on, your embed codes, I would suggest that you still get a privacy policy up on your website because it's required by law if you are generating any type of information from the IP addresses of users that land on your website. So that being said, what is a privacy policy and where did it come from? So the first place that it sort of started to arise from is, of course, state legislation. So state laws have various privacy policy protections, and every state law is different. Now, the Child Online Protection Act is a federal act that relates to children that are under 13 years old going through and browsing the web. Okay, so they have certain protections that apply to them. And then there are states like California, for example. California has one of the most strict privacy policy laws, and that is mostly because we all understand that California as a whole is kind of the hub of the United States for tech companies. And Silicon Valley is there. Of course, Facebook is there. And Facebook, I feel like, runs the entire online world and online business world with ads and Instagram as well. So that being said, California has the most strict privacy policy laws because they have tons of people lobbying for various, personal privacy protections related to the tech companies that are in that state. So if you have any type of California users that could land on your website, it's very, very, very important that you have a privacy policy because California has a law coming out in 2020. I think it's going to go into effect in 2020, which creates a private right of action that will go into effect, which means a California resident, if you aren't complying with XYZ related to their privacy policy laws in California, they can sue you. It gives them a private right of action. And so we all can't really control whether or not California users land on your website, and I bet they're going to. So let's just get to it. that is kind of the background on privacy policies. It's important nowadays because we are constantly just giving out all of our personal information to every website that we land on, whether it's advertent or inadvertent, because, we have IP addresses and all of these, third-party developers and advertisers and Google, analytic companies. They have a way of tracking where you go and using that information for further purposes, like Facebook ads. So a privacy policy, it's a document, you got to put it on your website. Okay. So that's the first thing you need to know. It's just a simple contract. You might not be able to fully understand the legalities of the privacy policy, but I want you to know that it should be a simple legal contract that is placed on the footer of your website. So everyone comes up to me and asks, where do I put a privacy policy? It goes at the bottom of your website. You don't need to have a pop-up. It just needs to be somewhere conspicuous at the bottom. Don't try to hide it. You just want people to be able to easily find it. So most people know if people are looking for terms and conditions or a privacy policy, they're likely going to scroll to your footer because they know, your header navigation bar is at the top, and that's just related to all of the services and offerings that you have as a business. And then at the bottom, you'll just want to put in privacy policy and a link to that specific page. So a privacy policy needs to include these things: who you collect the information from, why you are collecting that type of personal information, how you are using that information, like all of these tracking technologies through third parties that I just discussed. You need to explain things regarding minors' use of your website within your privacy policy. And then you need to explain the person's rights regarding the use of their personal information, including the rights to withdraw their personal information that you have. So I call it the who, the why, and the how, and then a few minor details as well. Of course, I don't want you to write this up yourself. A privacy policy has very specific legal language in it pertaining to the laws and regulations of the United States and various state privacy policy laws. Included in that is a GDPR disclaimer. So the General Data Protection Regulation is a European law that went into effect in May 2018. And if you recall, maybe you do, maybe you don't, there was a bunch of hoopla all over with online business owners. Does the GDPR apply to me? Do I need to have, pop-up cookies, on my website where it says, do you accept this site using cookies and gathering your personal information? Now, the answer is, if you know for sure that you have users from any European Union countries, then yes, you fall under the GDPR regulation. And kind of Europe is now a guiding force in online privacy policy laws. And that's trickling down to the US just a little bit slower because legislation here in the US takes a little bit longer. So yeah, if you have users from the EU, you need to make sure you're complying with the GDPR. Privacy policies need to comply as such. So there's GDPR disclaimers in privacy policies, templates that you would download and use from a respectable attorney. Now, that is pretty much all you need to know about privacy policies. It's all about the personal information you're acquiring from your users. Terms and conditions of websites are different. So terms and conditions are exactly how they sound. They are conditions of the people and users using your website. So what are you going to impose regarding how they can use your website, how they can download freebies? If say you have an online shop, it's very important for e-commerce businesses to have terms and conditions. So within these, they have things like linking to privacy policies and alerting them that you have a privacy policy in place. Then they have things like intellectual property notices. So if you have images and text on your website, they need to include terms and conditions that say that a user can't merely copy and use these images or this text and then merely credit you, that they have to expressly get permission from you to use any of the intellectual property that you own on your website. And most likely than not, you're not going to let people use your images because those are your images and you have them copyrighted. And the text that you have written on your website is yours as well to use. Or if you have a copywriter that has written it, then of course you want to keep that information and text close to your business and not let anyone else use that. So intellectual property notices are important. And then again, if you have an e-commerce site, you want refund policies, return policies, if you sell tangible items or digital products on your website. So Shopify, any other e-commerce site, it really is important because if you have like a refund request or a chargeback issue, the first thing that these third-party e-commerce providers are going to ask you is, what is your policy and your terms and conditions for a refund? Or what is your policy for returns of an item? Is it within 14 days, 30 days? And all of that needs to be laid out within your terms and conditions. And then that's something that you would link to. It's easy when you have a checkout form in these e-commerce sites. You can just link to the terms and conditions page that is actually on your website. So it's easy for people to access and know where it's at. Within the terms and conditions, you also want to have things like age requirements of your website. So they need to be more than 13 years old to comply with COPPA. An earnings disclaimer, an affiliate disclosure. If you have affiliate links on your website and you're generating any type of commission from someone that you are promoting or a business you're promoting. And then, of course, your ability to terminate a user's use of your website or take legal action against them if they violate your terms and conditions of use. So that is what terms and conditions are. It's not required by law, however. So a privacy policy is required by law to have. And like I said, you should just get one because I bet there is some tracking methods on your website and you are using people's personal information and acquiring that. Maybe you're not actively using it for advertisements yet or an email newsletter or something like that, but you need to get a privacy policy. Terms and conditions aren't required by law, but I've just explained to you how and why they are so important. So I would suggest you also implement some terms and conditions. Those are also going to be at the footer. So I always suggest you have two different pages for this, a terms and conditions of use, and then a privacy policy. You put them on two separate pages on your website and you link them in your footer, and then just make sure you have that footer at the bottom of every page of your website so that people can access it if they need to. Link to that on e-commerce checkout platforms. And the most important thing I want to tell you is you don't have to write these up yourself. I don't want you copying and pasting from anybody else's website because that is illegal. So don't do that. Just go get it from a reputable source, which is an attorney who has drafted these before. I am an attorney for online businesses, and I know what you need to have in your privacy policies and terms and conditions. And that being said, I have template contracts that you can download and use right now. So you download, you input your business information like your LLC, your address, that type of thing. And it's very simple. Download, put in, modify to your needs. You can take out like affiliate clauses if you're not an affiliate, or if you are, then you have them in there for you to use. And then you copy and you paste it and you put it on your website, and you are protecting your business. And you are complying with necessary online laws and regulations. So you can get those in the Legal Paige online shop, and it's thelegalpage.com/shop. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.